control ground zero. AJ the army of the people. When I see him, na military already. We fight war with bow. We fight war with AK-47, G3, M16 chain cutters. Na see him. Nigeria by action. Na see they were part of the battalion in this. Na see him. No be easy. Yes, today the 8th January. So they'll look at so, and they'll believe them. The army this where they control ground zero. Now the army this on ground zero. Now we see how. Don't be mob. It is so under the Supreme General of the ADF. A general by action, don't be general by mob. I see battalion, a battalion this. Wow. Ambassador, when I pray for the begin there. When I pray for the Supreme General of the ADF, now the battalion they will bring independence of this country, not in this. When I see them. Well equipped. This is the army of the people. The army they control ground zero. Ambassador Bona say, it don't be easy, but now God will get power. No be by power, but by the grace of God. If you see,
yeah,
that the biggest of all number that be this.
Thank the egg of CADF for their handwork. If you not see ADF and egg of C, if you not look and find on a handwork than this, we thank God. SKI! I hear you! SKI! I hear you! Who's your for commander?
The military this way they control ground zero. AJ the army of the people. When I see him, na military already. We fight war with bow. We fight war with AK-47, G3, M16 chain cutters. Na see him. Nigeria by action. Na see they were part of the battalion in this. Na see him. No be easy. Yes, today the 8th January. So they'll look at so, and they'll believe them. The army this where they control ground zero. Now the army this on ground zero. Now we see how. Don't be mob. It is so under the Supreme General of the ADF. A general by action, don't be general by mob. I see battalion, a battalion this. Wow. Ambassador, when I pray for the begin there. When I pray for the Supreme General of the ADF, now the battalion they will bring independence of this country, not in this. When I see them. Well equipped. This is the army of the people. The army they control ground zero. Ambassador Bona say, it don't be easy, but now God will get power. No be by power, but by the grace of God. If you see how,
yeah,
that the biggest of all number that be this.
Thank the egg of CADF for their handwork. If you not see ADF and egg of C, if you not look and find on a handwork than this, we thank God. SKI! I hear you! SKI! I hear you! Who's your for commander? Correct.
Good evening, my fellow Ambazonians across the globe. I am Lucas Asu, Executive Office of Governing Council of Ambazonia, Press Secretary. Today, your leadership has learned of a press release sent out by the Cameroon Minister of Defense. According to their press release, the Cameroon colonial government, the Cameroon tyrannical government, the colonial government led by Mr. Paul Biya, the colonial dictator of Cameroon, they have admitted defeat in Ambazonia. The Cameroon Minister of Defense, in the press release that was issued today, they have admitted they have been defeated by the Ambazonian people. Mr. Biya, who declared war on the Ambazonian people, Mr. Biya, who launched a genocide on the Ambazonian people, Mr. Biya, who launched a scorched earth policy campaign on the Ambazonian people. Today, the Cameroon Colonial Minister of Defense has accepted defeat. In order to hide their shame, in order to hide their humiliation, in order to hide their embarrassment and disgrace, Mr. Biya has invented new tricks to play with the international system, but more so to play with the citizens of Cameroon. Here is what the colonial dictator wants to do. The new tricks they have invented is to say, hey, first, instead of Biya to go to his people and say, hey, I made a mistake and I apologize for all the Cameroonese soldiers, for all the bees, the army, the police, and the gendarmes that have died because of my senseless war, because of my stupidity. Instead of Mr. Biya to go to the Cameroonese mothers and families and seek and give an apology and seek for forgiveness for the pain he has caused the thousands of Cameroonese mothers. By the senseless war, because of his senseless war in Ambazonia. He wants to hide under the word terrorism. The Cameroon Minister of Defense signed a communique today, putting out to the public, claiming that Ambazonian forces have international support from other terrorist movements. Their intention, because they don't want to accept defeat, now they are looking for ways to use the international terrorism law for a terrorist like Mr. Paul Biya to tag the Ambazonian forces as terrorists. This is the biggest comedy the world has ever seen. This is the joke of the century. What does this tell us? Two things. Cameroon, the defeat of Cameroon in Ambazonia, and the failure of Mr. Biya to commit to the UN, to a UN-led negotiation. Even the peace, even the Swiss process or the Swiss intention, which was initiated behind the scenes by Cameroon. Cameroon cannot commit to even that process, which it initiated. They cannot commit to any credible international process to find an escape route and to seek for the international community to give them more money so they could embezzle. They now want to use the route of terrorism. Mr. Biya, the Ambazonian forces are funded exclusively by the Ambazonian people. Why? Because the international community failed to invoke the responsibility to protect the Ambazonian people. Our people came together and decided to invoke the right of self-defense to protect themselves from your terrorism, to protect themselves from your terrorist actions, to protect themselves from your crimes against humanity, your human rights abuses, your scorched earth policy, your rape. Ambazonians forces are funded by the Ambazonian people to secure their right for self-determination, to defend the territorial integrity of Ambazonia. And Mr. Biya be reminded, Ambazonia is not a part of Cameroon. Ambazonia has never been a part of Cameroon. Your country called Cameroon gained independence on the 1st of October, on the 1st of January 1960. Ambazonia was not part of it. And according to the African Union, every nation must respect its territorial boundaries obtained at independence. When Cameroon gained independence, Ambazonia or Southern Cameroons was not part of it. The process called the plebiscite, conducted by the United Nations, was an act of intention, was an expression of intention. The protocol laid out by 1608, those processes were not fulfilled. The condition for a union were not fulfilled. You move your police, you move your gendarmes, you move your army, you occupied Ambazonia in 1961. And this generation have made a bold decision to end Cameroon's occupation of Ambazonia. And that's exactly what the Ambazonian people are doing. That's exactly what our brave forces are doing. That's exactly what our brave men and women are doing. Defend Ambazonia children from your terrorist bee, from your terrorist army, from your terrorist gendarmes, from your terrorist police. Ambazonia forces are defending Ambazonian children, Ambazonian women, Ambazonian grandmothers and grandfathers to protect their lives. Secondly, to battle Cameroon occupational military wherever they are in Ambazonia. It is the right of the Ambazonian people. Colonialism is a crime against humanity. Illegal occupation is a crime against humanity. And the Ambazonian people will do whatever it takes to make sure your terrorism, your brutality, Cameroon's illegal occupation of Ambazonia comes to an end. You declare war on the Ambazonian people and you say you want to fight. Mr. Biya, send the bee to come to Ambazonia and fight. You declare war on the Ambazonian people. You said you crush them in 2 weeks. It's 4 years. And today you are crying. Crying like a baby. Crying like a little baby. Your army of occupation in Ambazonia are crying like babies. You said they were trained by the Americans. You said they were trained by the French. You said they were trained by the Germans. You said they were trained by the Israelis. And you call them special forces. And you are crying that untrained Ambazonian fighters can battle them, can smash them, they can humble them, they can humiliate them. And you turn around and you call them terrorists? You said, oh, they were secessionists. Now they are no longer secessionists, now they are terrorists. You said you want to fight. We are inviting you to Ambazonia to come and fight. We are inviting you to Ambazonia, Mr. Biya. The Ambazonian people are inviting you to Ambazonia to send more bees, send more gendarmes, send more police, send more of your army. Send them to come and fight. You declare the war. Come and fight the war. But here's the message. Not with this generation. The Ambazonian people will not only defeat Cameroon, as we've already done, but will make sure Cameroon as a state cease to exist. Ambazonia provides 65% of GDP to the state of Cameroon. That has come to an end. That has come to an end. You have to deal with the aftermath. How to reintegrate the Northeast, how to reintegrate the Bamilekes, how to reintegrate the Dwalas or the Basas, and how to create harmony with the Bulus. As for Ambazonia, it's game over. The game is over. We will build a state that is going to be the anchor of peace, of security, and stability in the Gulf of Guinea. We are going to build a state that is totally democratic. We are going to build a state that will be the anchor of peace and prosperity and good governance, to be a shining example in an area filled with French chaos. Central Africa is chaotic. Congo is chaotic. Chad is chaotic. Cameroon is chaotic. The only hope is Ambazonia. That's the hope. That's the hope for the international system. For the Gulf of Guinea to be stable, the hope of the Gulf of Guinea is Ambazonia. For international trade to have a flourishing environment, hope is Ambazonia. From 1961 to 2021, the Cameroon colonial state has not been able to provide to its people even basic drinking water, basic schools, basic clinics. They can't even pay the salaries of workers. Can't even carry garbage on their own streets. The Cameroon people don't have basic electricity. The rule of law does not exist. The person who violates the constitution more than anyone else is the head of the terrorist regime, Mr. Paul Biya. Those who violate their own constitution are the ministers, the BE, the army, the police, the gendarme. How can you build a state when there's no rule of law? When the courts have no relevance? There is no hope for Cameroon. It's a hopeless adventure. Ambazonia is a light. Ambazonia is the light. Our forces have a command and control structure under total political leadership, with a respect to international law and a total code of conduct consistent with the 4 Geneva Conventions. October 1 is coming up. Our people will demonstrate to the international system, to the international community, their total control of their territory. Our forces will project power and authority on the ground. Cameroon's occupation of Ambazonia has come to an end. Mr. Biya drama and the fallout of the Cameroon state. Cameroon is on the brink of implosion. The signs are clear for everybody. Mr. Biya, there is no escape. Go to your people and ask for forgiveness for sending them to the land of no return, for sending them to the valley of death. You have been defeated. Leave now. You all have a good night.